All right, so we're at part 2, and I think I left off with how I ended up with dentures, and then, I was sleeping through the night, sipping cold water, and waking up in agonizing pain. So that was pretty much all that helped at the time, really, was ice cold water. So you would always see me with ice cold water, and the reason I was spitting it out was because I found I was going through so much water that I would have to go to the bathroom a lot. So I just started spitting it out so I didn't have to go to the bathroom all the time, because I was so miserable. And a year after I met my husband, we got married, and I went to the doctors and we found out that I did have depression and anxiety, but we also found out from all the childhood trauma and stuff that I had BPD, borderline personality disorder, and bipolar disorder. So I was put on medications for different things to help with different things. And some of those medications were really hard medications, and I still take some of them today. And they ruined my teeth more. So my teeth were just awful by now. By this point, we're married, I'm on medication, they're ruining my teeth. They're breaking off in the gums. I think the only decent teeth I had anymore were these front teeth. And I mean, they had cavities. You could feel them behind, like right there. You could feel the cavities and stuff. So I knew I still had bad teeth. And I was still living in excruciating pain, but by now I was just learning how to live with it and how to eat with it. And I had to cut out some things I like to eat now. I couldn't eat like cashews or hard things. I had to stick to really soft things, and I couldn't eat anything sugary or sweet. I couldn't eat ice cream. Yeah, my teeth were bad, really bad. So a year after we got married, we had our first daughter. And the pregnancy was very hard on me. I can't remember what I had. It was some big word. I think it started with the letter G. But basically what it was I would throw up constantly all day and all night throughout the entire pregnancy, not just the first trimester, the entire pregnancy. And they had to put me on medication for that. And I had to go in once in a while and get IV fluids and stuff because it was really bad. And that messed up my teeth even more. And then 2 years later, we had a second daughter, which messed up my teeth even more with the constant vomiting and the medications I had to take for it and everything. And by now, I had very little teeth left. And because so many of them had broken off at the gum line, it kind of brought the pain down a little bit. But I was, like, my face was constantly swollen. I constantly had abscesses. I could feel the lumps on the gums in there all around and then the top, and it was miserable. But a couple years after we had our second daughter, it was time for our first daughter, Melanie, to start going to the dentist herself, because I didn't want my kids to go through what I went through, so I made sure my kids have good oral hygiene, because they do not want to go through what I went through, the pain and the misery and stuff. But it was time for her first time to go to the dentist, and she was nervous, understandably. She's never been to one. She didn't know what to expect, only what she saw on, like, Doc McStuffins and Dora or whatever she was watching at the time. And I told her, there's nothing to be scared about. There's nothing to be worried about. I'll make an appointment with you at the dentist, and I'll make sure I go first so you can see what they do so you know it's not scary. I don't know if that was the biggest mistake of my life or what, but that's the fast track to how we ended up here. So we took her to the dentist, and they did my cleaning and scraping and all the stuff they do to your teeth before the dentist comes in. And it hurt so bad. It was so bad. I wanted to cry and scream, and I wanted them to stop. But my daughter was here. I had to be strong for her. I didn't want her to see fear. And then the dentist came in, and he looked in my mouth, and he only looked in my mouth for a good minute or so before he was back out, and he looked at me and he said, "What happened to your teeth?" And I was so embarrassed. I felt so ashamed of everything I had gone through to get to this point. And I summed it up to him the best I could. And he said that the only option at this point was to get all my teeth extracted and get full dentures. I honestly didn't expect to hear that at the time. I just thought he would give me something for like the infections and send me on my way. But no, I needed a full dentures. And because my teeth were so bad and so broken down at the gum line, the only option for me was to, with my insurance, was to go about 2 hours away to a specialist, a surgeon who specializes in surgically removing teeth. And I was so scared. So while I was at the dentist office, they ended up taking impressions of what teeth I had left, which hurt so unbelievably bad. I honestly thought they were going to pull the teeth out with the impression material. But they did the impressions. They made me an appointment for about a week later at the specialist. So I went to the specialist. It was like a consultation appointment. And he said, you know, we're going to do this. We're going to sedate you. You're going to be sleeping the whole time. You won't feel anything. And we're going to give you pain medicine to go home with. Yada, yada, yada. You know, the usual. So I said, okay. I signed all the papers that needed to be signed. And he set me up for about a week later for the surgery. My last meal before surgery was Chinese food. I will never turn down Chinese food. That was my last meal. And I think all of us have a last meal before we get our teeth extracted. I think that's just something we all do. I'd love to hear what your last meal was if you want to put that in the comments. But anyway, a week later, my husband takes me to the specialist surgeon. My kids are with family. They're getting ready to do a big family cookout that day. And I was scared. I was shaking. I was terrified. I cried on the ride up. I was just scared. I didn't know what to expect. I have a low pain tolerance, so I don't know. I was scared. But I got there. We waited for about 10 minutes. It was really quick. And then they took me back. My husband couldn't come with me. I remember the room being really, really cold, and it was just like all steel appliances and stuff. They had me lay on this really hard, flat steel kind of bed. And they hooked me up to an IV. They said it was going to put me to sleep. They told me to count backwards from 100. And I don't remember counting at all. I don't remember anything past lying on the table and them saying that I was going to go to sleep. All I do remember is waking up. And I woke up in a room. Must have been like an aftercare room or something, but I wasn't in a bed. There was a bed in the room, but for some reason they had me in like a lounge chair. Probably because you shouldn't lay down after you get your teeth extracted, now that I'm thinking about it. I was in a lounge chair, and I just remember waking up, surprised that I wasn't like tumbling face first out of this chair, because there was nothing holding me in. I was just like hunched over like this in the chair when I woke up. And I remember seeing my husband sitting just a little bit behind me and to the side. He said something. I can't remember what he said, like how you feeling or something. A nurse came over with a basin, and she held it under my mouth and said to open my mouth. And I remember my mouth felt full of gauze and stuff and yucky stuff. And I remember the taste and everything, and it was awful. So I just like hunched over the basin, and all this gauze fell out covered in yucky stuff. And I was like kind of panicking. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. Like, am I dying? Am I bleeding out? Like, what? And I couldn't ask these questions. I couldn't speak. I was like numbed up or something. My mouth just wouldn't form the words. I couldn't move my mouth, my lips or anything and say words or talk. It was weird. But they told me the stitches would dissolve on their own. They'd do a follow-up in about 2 weeks or so. No straws, elevated, use ice, take your pain medicine, the prescription they were sending in. Keep up on it, saltwater rinses and all that fun stuff. And they sent me on my way. Part 3 for the rest.